The sun hung low and red over Mojave, bleeding into the desert like an open wound. Dust curled in angry spirals across the hardpan, wind howling like it carried the voices of the dead. That's when Jonas Reed saw her. At first, just a flicker, something moving where nothing should, a figure crawling, clawing across the sand with the last strength of a soul, refusing to die. She looked more like a mirage than a woman, half buried by grit, her dress torn and sun-bleached, hair matted to her face, and arms wrapped tight around a bundle the size of a sack of potatoes. Jonas tugged his hat low, squinted into the wind, and dismounted. The horse shifted, uneasy. He crouched by her, pressed 2 fingers to her neck. Still alive, barely. She muttered something under her breath, dry and broken, then passed out cold. He pulled the bundle from her grip. It gave a soft cry. A baby. Jonas stared at it for a long second, then cursed under his breath and slung the woman over his shoulder, cradled the child in his arm, and mounted up. There were no tracks behind her. Whoever she was running from had stopped following, or was waiting ahead. 2 miles later, he rode up to his ranch. It wasn't much, just a crooked barn, a half-built corral, and a one-room cabin tucked beneath the shade of a leaning cottonwood. The wind snapped the loose shutters as he pushed through the door. He laid her on his bed, soaked a rag, and pressed it to her forehead. She didn't stir. The baby whimpered, reaching out blindly. Jonas found a wooden crate, padded it with an old wool shirt, and laid the child inside. The infant's chest rose and fell with shallow, sleepy breaths. He looked down at the woman, her face gaunt but not without beauty. She had the look of someone who'd once smiled, but hadn't in a long time. He poured a shot of whiskey, sat at the table, and waited for morning. She woke screaming. Jonas was already there, boots on the floor, rifle leaning beside him. She scrambled away from the bed, eyes wild, hands reaching. "Easy," Jonas said, voice gravelly. "You're safe." She froze. Her gaze darted to the crate. The baby let out a sleepy cry. She rushed to it, held him close, rocked him against her chest. Her hands trembled. "Where am I?" she asked. "My place. Dust Creek, edge of Mojave. You crawled out of the desert yesterday with him in your arms." Her lips cracked as she tried to speak again, but instead she nodded, tight-lipped, and turned her back to him. "I ain't a skin your business," Jonas added. "But you should know. Folks round here don't take kindly to mystery." She didn't answer, only kissed the baby's forehead and closed her eyes. He let her be. Days passed. She spoke little, but moved steady, helped with the animals, cooked what little they had. The baby, named Silas, clung to her like a second skin. Jonas found himself watching them when he thought she wasn't looking. She wore silence like armor, but sometimes, just sometimes, her eyes softened when she looked at the child, or when the wind rustled the cottonwood just right. The town took notice. Dust Creek was small. 1 street, 1 saloon, 24 people, and twice as many rumors. They talked over poker and beer. "Jonas Reed's at a woman now," someone muttered. "Found her in the sand, they say. Witch or whore, nobody knows. Might be she's got a bounty on her head." Deputy Raleigh, a rail-thin man with a twitchy eye and a badge too big for his chest, started asking questions. Jonas said nothing. Then one morning, a rider came. Jonas heard the hooves long before he saw the man, tall, clean-shaven, dressed in black with a vest too fine for the desert. His horse was lathered but proud. He stopped just outside the fence, dismounted, and nodded like they'd met before. Jonas stepped down from the porch, rifle resting in the crook of his arm. "Name's Boone," the man said. "I work for Mr. Marcus Langford." Jonas didn't blink. "Don't know him." Boone smiled thinly and reached into his saddlebag. He pulled out an envelope, thick, sealed with wax and stained dark brown. He says you're keeping something that belongs to him. Jonas took the envelope, opened it. Inside was a letter written in fine script and short on courtesy. "The woman who calls herself Cassandra is a fugitive. She stole from my house, murdered my brother, and fled with a child that bears my blood. Return them, and no harm will come to you. Refuse, and I will collect what's mine." There was no signature, only a pressed seal in the shape of a lion's head. Jonas folded the letter, tossed it into the dirt. She ain't as a take. Boone's smile vanished. Then you'll be seeing us again. He mounted up and rode east, slow and deliberate, as if inviting Jonas to shoot him in the back. That night, Cassie sat on the porch beside Jonas as the sky turned indigo. "I know who he works for," she said. "You want to tell me?" She looked out across the land, empty, wind-bitten, stretching into forever. Langford runs land from Texas to Tucson. Thinks money makes him God. My sister worked for him. When she tried to leave, he had her found. Said I could stay in exchange for silence. One night, I left. Took the boy and whatever I could carry. He calls it theft. I call it survival. Jonas nodded. Slow. The baby his? She hesitated. I don't know. I pray not. Jonas didn't ask more. Just lit a cigarette and watched the horizon burn orange. In the dark, Cassie opened a locket. Inside were two faces. One, a girl younger than her, smiling with sunshine in her eyes. The other, a drawing of a man with eyes like coal fire. She closed it, tucked it beneath her dress, and rocked Silas gently to sleep. Jonas cleaned his rifle that night, greased every bullet, checked every hinge. The silence between them was thick, but not empty. Trouble was coming. It always did. But this time, Jonas wouldn't ride away. He'd buried enough ghosts. Maybe it was time to stand his ground. Cassie had stopped shaking in her sleep. That was the first sign she was settling. But Jonas knew better than to trust quiet. Quiet always came before thunder. The baby, Silas, had grown stronger. He laughed sometimes, mostly at the goats or when Cassie sang to him, soft and broken, like a woman trying to remember who she used to be. Jonas kept his routine. Early mornings, fence repairs, cattle feeding. But now his eyes scanned the ridges every few minutes. There were fresh tracks in the dry riverbed 2 days in a row. Someone was scouting. Cassie stayed close to the house. She cleaned the rifle Jonas gave her. She handled it like someone who'd used one before. She never asked to leave, and he never asked her to stay. One afternoon, while hauling water, Jonas heard something strange. Laughter. It came from the edge of the orchard where Cassie sat under the shade with Silas in her lap and an old harmonica in hand. She didn't play it well, but the baby didn't care. Jonas paused, watching them. The scene dug under his ribs like a thorn. He hadn't heard that kind of sound since before the war, before fire and screams and a letter from Washington told him his brother wouldn't be coming home. That evening, while skinning a rabbit, Jonas finally spoke. "You ever kill a man?" Cassie didn't look up. "Yes, but I don't regret it." He nodded once, then with the same. They didn't speak of it again. 2 nights later, the storm rolled in like the devil himself had grown tired of hiding. Lightning cracked over the ridge, painting the desert silver. The baby screamed from the wind's howl. Jonas stepped out to tie down the barn doors, and that's when he saw the man by the fence. A flash of lightning lit him up like God's own spotlight. Hat low, rifle drawn, one eye covered by a leather patch. Jonas dropped to a knee behind a barrel and fired. The shot rang out, echoing down the gulch. The man disappeared into the brush. Jonas ran forward but found only a patch of blood and an empty flask carved with initials, R.L. He returned soaked, face grim. Cassie had the rifle ready, baby against her hip. "Langford's men?" she asked. "Not just his. Someone who knows how to move quiet. Ex-military by the look of him." Cassie whispered a prayer. Jonas didn't say anything. He just watched the horizon. The next day, Dust Creek felt colder. Deputy Raleigh cornered Jonas by the general store. "Heard a shot last night. Folks are jumpy," Raleigh said, chewing on a toothpick. Jonas didn't bother lying. "Had a trespasser." Raleigh leaned in. "Look, I don't care what that woman did, but if trouble's coming to this town, we'll deal with it. Don't make me choose between her and the folks I serve." Jonas's jaw tightened. "She ain't the trouble. She's what trouble's after." "Same difference," Raleigh muttered and walked off. Jonas bought more rounds and extra flour. He knew what was coming. He'd been a cavalry scout in Virginia. He'd seen ambushes planned over cold bread and warm whiskey. This felt the same, just slower, stretched out across dust and guilt. That night, Cassie sat by the fire, holding Silas. She was staring into the flames like they held answers. "I was 17 when my sister left home," she said. "She was going to be a housemaid for the Langfords. My mother cried for 3 days. When my sister didn't write, I went after her. Took 2 weeks to get there. She was already dead." Jonas looked up, waiting. They said she fell, down the stairs. But her hands were bruised. Her lip was split. I knew what had happened. Langford offered me a job the next day. Said I reminded him of her. I stayed. Not because I was scared. Because I wanted to kill him. Jonas stared into the fire with her. He knew revenge. It was a flame that never warmed. "One night," she continued, "he came to my room. I had a knife ready. Put it in his thigh before he could touch me. Took Silas and ran." Jonas blinked. "Why the boy?" "I don't know," she said. "Maybe I didn't want him to grow up into a monster. Or maybe I just wanted to save something when I couldn't save her." A gust of wind howled outside. Jonas stood, walked a window. Someone was out there, watching. By morning, they found the goat pen cut open. One of the animals gone. Tracks again. Jonas followed them past the creek, where he found a fire pit still warm and fresh tobacco spit in the dirt. The man with the eye patch was close. That afternoon, an old wagon creaked up the trail. An Apache man rode beside it, silent, weathered, with a scar down the center of his neck. Jonas knew him. "Sawtooth," he said. The man nodded. They had fought side by side once, long ago, under a captain who died with a Bible in his chest. "I heard a woman was hunted," Sawtooth said. "She's got a boy, and a man with money wants her back." The old warrior looked toward the house. "That man has sent others. They killed a rancher south of here, burned his barn, looking for her." Jonas nodded. "You'll stay?" "For a while," Sawtooth said, "until the storm passes, or the blood dries." That night, Cassie thanked him. Sawtooth didn't respond, just took a knife from his belt and began sharpening it. Jonas and Sawtooth stood watching shifts. Cassie slept with the baby between them, the locket around her neck gripped tight in her hand. But sleep came light. Everyone knew the desert wasn't quiet anymore. At dawn, a hawk circled overhead. Jonas watched it spin, then turned to see a shadow crest a ridge. A second figure followed, then 3 more. Jonas felt it in his bones. Langford's men were coming. But what haunted him more wasn't them. It was what he'd have to do next, and whether it would be enough. The ridge swarmed with dust and figures on horseback. 5 men, maybe 6. Jonas didn't count again after he saw the one riding point. Broad-shouldered, gold-tipped rifle, and a hat too clean for this country. Langford had come himself. Jonas stood on the porch, rifle in one hand, coffee cup in the other. Beside him, Sawtooth crouched with his bow. Inside, Cassie packed a sack with baby clothes and the locket she never took off. Silas stirred, sensing the tension like animals did before storms. They didn't speak of running. There was nowhere to run. Langford's men didn't rush. They stopped 100 yards out, like they were waiting for the wind to favor their side. Langford dismounted, dusting off his long coat with slow arrogance that made Jonas's trigger finger twitch. Langford shouted without stepping forward. "Jonas Reed, I know your name. Cavalryman, war hero, big heart for strays. But you've taken something of mine. I'm here to collect." Jonas didn't move. "She ain't yours," he called back. "And that child sure as hell ain't." Langford smiled, amused. "Everything I pay for is mine. You know how this land works. She ran off of what I raised. That boy's my blood." Sawtooth muttered, "Vultures always claim what they never earned." Langford stepped forward, voice rising. "She killed my brother, left him bleeding in my study like a dog. She's not innocent. She's poison. And that baby, that child, is the fruit of sin." Jonas lowered the cup, finally speaking with steel in his voice. "Your brother tried to rape her. That ain't sin, that's justice." Langford's eyes went cold. "I gave you a chance. Now I'll take her by fire if I must." Then came silence. Flat, tight, stretched over the land like a drawn string. The first shot cracked the sky. Sawtooth dropped one of the men before he reached his rifle. Jonas fired next, catching another off his saddle. Dust exploded as bullets tore through fence posts, dry ground, and wood siding. Cassie stayed low inside the cabin, clutching Silas tight beneath the floorboards. Langford's men spread wide, returning fire from behind boulders and brush. Jonas ducked back, reloading fast. He caught Sawtooth's eye. They'd seen worse odds. Then a bullet tore into Jonas's shoulder, spinning him to the ground. Cassie screamed. Blood soaked his shirt as he crawled behind the water barrel. Sawtooth let out a howl and loosed 3 arrows in fast succession. 2 men fell. The third ran limping toward the creek. Langford advanced through the smoke like it belonged to him. He raised his rifle, aimed at the cabin, but hesitated. Cassie stepped out, gun drawn, baby on her hip, eyes steady. Put him down, Langford growled. Give me what's mine. She walked forward, slow. Her voice never wavered. He's not yours. He never was. He was born from fear, not love. But he's mine now. Mine to raise. Mine to protect. Langford aimed at her heart. Jonas, bleeding behind the trough, lifted his revolver. I didn't survive Shiloh, he muttered. Just to die for a coward in silk boots. He fired. Langford's chest erupted in red. He staggered back, fell to his knees, eyes wide in disbelief, like he couldn't believe someone had dared to stop him. Then he collapsed face first into the sand. Cassie dropped to her knees, baby still in her arms, sobbing, not out of grief, but release. The remaining men fled. Sawtooth limped to Jonas, who was pale but breathing. You're not dead, the old warrior said. Not yet. Jonas winced, clutching his shoulder. But I'll take a drink just the same. Days passed. Blood was scrubbed off the porch. Langford's body was buried beneath the cottonwood tree. No marker, but a boot left turned in the wrong direction. Sawtooth left at dawn without a word, leaving behind an arrow laid across Jonas's doorstep, a silent promise, or maybe a goodbye. Cassie took over the housework. She boiled herbs for Jonas's wound. Silas played with the wooden horse she whittled by firelight. Jonas sat in the rocker each evening, watching the sun slide behind the ridge. You staying? He asked her one night. Cassie didn't answer right away. I don't know who I was before I ran, she said. But here, I know who I want to be. Jonas nodded. A few weeks later, they rode into Dust Creek together. Her dress mended, Jonas's shoulder in a sling, and the baby wide-eyed at the sound of piano through saloon doors. Folks stopped whispering after that. Raleigh tipped his hat, but said nothing. He never asked what became of Langford. The desert had its own way of settling accounts. Jonas built a new crib, planted wildflowers over the grave by the cottonwood. Cassie started reading Silas the Bible, not the wrathful parts, but the ones about redemption. Her voice softened with time. One morning, she found Jonas out by the gravesite, holding a letter. What's that? She asked. He handed it to her. The paper was faded, but the words still clear. To my brother Jonas, in case I don't come back, don't waste your life chasing ghosts. Find someone worth protecting. That's how you make peace with the dead. She looked up at him. He nodded. They burned the letter together. The ashes lifted into the wind and scattered across the desert. That night, as the stars came out, Cassie placed her locket on the mantel and left it open. Inside, next to her sister's face, was now a small drawing of Jonas, sketched in charcoal. She took Silas in her arms and whispered, This land may never forgive us, but we'll build something honest in its dust. The wind howled through the hills again, but this time it didn't sound like ghosts. It sounded like peace.